All right, welcome everyone to this session called Make It Gorgeous, presented by me, Matthew Mays. I am an educational consultant at the Stark County Educational Service Center, and I kind of have one foot in that realm, and I have one foot in the SPARCC realm, who is presenting today's conference. So thank you all so much for attending. Hopefully you've had some really great sessions so far today. And hopefully this one will be another one for you to add some good stuff to your repertoire in your classroom. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, for those of you who are in, this is going to be a pretty untraditional session. A lot of the presentations that you may have seen so far today have been like, a slide deck, and let's go through the slides and here are some resources. But I'm actually going to walk through quite a bit when it comes to Google Workspace, to show you exactly where the buttons are located and how you can make things happen to take work that you already have or to create new content for your classroom in a way that's visually appealing for your students. So without further ado, we have a lot to cover today. I'm going to go ahead and share my entire screen with all of you, and we'll get things rolling. All right, so for starters, as I said, these don't have to be, you don't have to be creating things from scratch in order to make them gorgeous. All the things that I'm showing you today are can apply to things that you already have. You can plus them up. But for the most part, we're going to stick to the things that are available within our Google Drive. So you can see I'm in my Google Drive here. And one thing that I want to point out to you, as you go to create new items such as docs, sheets, slides, forms, so on and so on, is if you hover over this little arrow, you can see that it allows you to choose a blank document, or you can choose something from a template. So to get started, I'm going to click on the Google Docs template area and just show you some of the things that you can pick from in here. So again, all of these are available to you. And if your organization has any of them, you can also see some of the templates that are available that may have your organization's branding, or that you may be able to access to make your own. So with these being templates, I can choose any one of the things that I see below here, and I can customize them to fit my needs. Now, the important thing to remember is that you don't have to go word for word on any of these. So for example, if I wanted to do this project proposal, let's say that I wanted to start customizing it for myself, don't feel like you have to have something in every single one of these sections, and that if you don't fill them up that you can't use it. One of the things that I really like to do is to say like, oh, I like how this is laid out, or I really just like this part and what's happening up here in the header, but I'm pretty much going to get rid of everything else. That's totally okay. So what we're shooting for here today is to make things that are not only look good, but that function well for your classroom. So pick and choose the things that you like, take the items that you think will be helpful for you and your students, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of good feedback on that too. So I'm going to hide my camera while I'm here. That way you don't see me focusing intently on my screen as I'm making my way around. But where I'd like to start our conversation today is down here in More, and that is Google Drawings. If you're unfamiliar with Google Drawings, think of this kind of like one singular slide within a Google slide deck. However, I really like to think of this as a great way to create custom classroom materials. So if you have worksheets from the past, if you're trying to create your own like custom images, like think about Paint way back in the day when computers first started, this is a tool that can help you to recreate all of those things. The nice thing about this is everything that I'm going to show you here in drawing is also going to be able to be replicated within Google Slides. So, the headers are pretty much the same. The little menu icon bar, pretty much the same. So all the things that we do here, you could pretty much do there, just on a larger scale with multiple slides. So for starters, there's two different spaces here within Google Drawing. This pixelated area that you see here in the center, this is what I call the workspace. So this is where you're actually going to be able to put your content. And if you were to save items or to publish items or export them out, whatever is happening here in this pixelated area, those are the things that are actually going to appear when they're saved or when they're exported. However, you can also use this gray space over here on the side when you're sharing things with students in classroom. So for example, let's say you wanted to recreate a worksheet that you've used forever, and you just want to make a digital copy of that. You can totally do that here. Use this space, for your activity, whatever that may be, and then you can put instructions over here on the side. So let's see what this actually looks like. You'll notice that currently I have just a plain rectangle, that's sitting on its side here, but I can customize that by choosing these little lines down here in the bottom right-hand corner. So I could choose to click and drag, and that's going to shrink my area, make it an even more elongated rectangle. I can also bring this in a little bit, try and make it more of a square. So now I have a square workspace to work with. But I can also come up here to File and Page Setup and choose a customized layout for myself. So let's say that we're trying to recreate that worksheet. I can choose 8.5 by 11 because that's like the standard copy paper size. So I could choose that to be in inches. You also see centimeters, you'll see points, and you'll see pixels. For the most part, I usually use just inches. However, if I'm trying to create something like a customized header for my Google Sites, I may choose to use pixels in that regard, just because I know that the sites are pretty much laid out by pixels. So I'm going to choose that and then hit apply. And you'll notice now I have what appears to be a standard size of computer paper, which is really, really cool. So that's how we can change the space. Our workspace changes the shape of that. What I'd like to show you next is to insert some objects. So when I click on insert, there's all kinds of things that we can add. I'm going to come down here to my icon bar, and I'm going to choose shapes. So here within shapes, I have all kinds of amazing things that I can pick from. So here's your more standardized shapes, but you can also see down below, we're starting to get into some more fun, some like cutesier items. You'll also see a whole slew of arrows that you can pick from, and these call outs or speech bubbles, and then also some mathematical equation symbols, which is really fun. So what I'm going to do is start with this circle. I've selected that circle. You'll notice that my cursor has changed to the plus sign, and with a click and drag, I get to choose what my circle looks like. So I'm also going to make one more that's slightly bigger, and let's do this just so that way you can kind of see how it works one more time. I click on that shape, and then with a click and drag, I can get that larger circle, which is really fun. When one of these circles is selected, you'll see that my icon bar has now expanded. So with a little bit of play, I can choose some different colors. So by using this paint bucket, I'll select yellow. By choosing the pencil, I'm now impacting the outer color, so that border color. Maybe I'm going to give it a little orange. It's not very noticeable, so let's crank that up a little bit. Now you can see I have this yellow circle with a little bit of orange. And then let's change the color of our big one while we're here too. I'll just kind of invert it and do the opposite. Make that orange with a little bit of yellow, and we'll give that a border too. Okay, so now I have two really nice circles, as well as my changed up workspace. So if I wanted to, I could add text to either one of these circles with a double click. So if I double click on the circle, I then get my blinking cursor, which means I can start typing, which is the exact same thing as what we would see within our Word documents, within our Google Docs. I get my blinky cursor. So I could start typing, and you'll notice that I have my words typed out. It's still aligned to the left, and it's kind of small. So if I highlight it, I can change the size by cranking up here at the top. And then I can also use my my alignment tool here to get it to go into the center. So this is perfectly centered. It's just the way I wanted it. But what if I wanted it to come up here closer to the top? If I hit my enter key, then I'm shoving those words up into the top. So now that word sun is attached to this circle. But let's say that I had a whole bunch of text. So just go with me here for a second as I lay on my keyboard, and now I have all kinds of extra stuff that I don't necessarily want, right? It's not fitting in the way that I thought it would fit here on my circle. It's kind of a mess. The nice way to do this is to insert a text box. So right next to your shapes, you'll see the text box. And with a click and drag, I can then start making changes to this as well. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. We'll make it 24. I'm going to type in the word sun. Let's make this bold. And just for fun, let's make it orange. And I'm going to put it here as well. So now using this text box, I can click and drag over and place it wherever I want. So maybe I just want it to appear over here on the far right. Maybe for whatever reason, I want it down here on the left. I can, maneuver my words around on my shape in a much more efficient way than what I could do before with that double click. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, now you've created two different items here and they're traveling independently. With a click and drag over both of those items, I can use Control G to group them together as one, or I can right click and I can go down here and select two. So that's Control Alt G brings that up. And now when I click on one, it moves both. All right, so that's a really nice tip in order to kind of group those items together. And for those of you who were smart notebook users, when that was in fashion, that's a great way that you can bring that out too. So let's now talk about our organization of these items, kind of that hierarchy of what is appearing on our page. So if you'll remember, I did this circle first and I did this circle second. So if I bring this over, I'm highlighting that circle. So it's popping up behind it. It's ordering my items. But what if I wanted this orange circle, for whatever reason, to appear over top of this yellow one? If I right click, I can go down to order and I can choose bring to front to have it appear, maybe we're learning about eclipses or something silly, or maybe this isn't the sun, this is the moon, and I'm trying to show how, the moon phases can change things. Or perhaps this is like a Venn diagram and I want, one section to, hover over another. We can totally make that happen here. So to change that up, to change it again, I can send this to the back and now I have my yellow, kind of taking the place of that orange here in this fashion. So those are my ordering tools. Now you may also be thinking, it would be nice if it could just kind of snap to by itself. Well, we have two tools that we can use for that, and that is horizontal and vertical alignment. So what I'm going to do is select both of these items, and then with a right click, I can go to align horizontally, and I would like for these to be center aligned. And then I will do my align vertical and go to middle. And now I have those items perfectly aligned. This is a great way if you have multiple items, I'll show you an example where, we'll bring in a map of the US and we'll do some flags here in a moment. And I'll show you a little bit more about how this works too. So I think you'll enjoy the possibilities of those alignments as well. So why don't we do that? Let's insert another image. And I'm going to change up my workspace here. Again, remember, this gray space is all available. So if I wanted to put extra text, or if I want to put instructions for my students over here, I can do that. And then when it is shared with them, they will get everything that happens over here. So again, if I were to share this Google drawing with my students, not only will they get what's in here, but they're also going to get what's over in the gray space. So let's insert an image. I'm going to come up here to insert image. And when you do so, you get the ability to add anything from your drive, from photos, from a URL, like let's say you have it already, or you can choose your camera. So that's going to activate the camera that's attached to the computer, and you can bring things about. You could also do your Google searches directly here from the Insert tab. So if you choose Search the Web, you get that Omnibox appear over here on the side. Now, it's really important that you take note of this little message down here. It says only select images that you have confirmed that you have the license to use. So if I were to do a search in this space, I'm going to get pictures and images that are not copyright protected. So for example, if I were to look up Mickey Mouse It's not going to show me those Disney copyright images of Mickey Mouse. I'm probably going to get like some hand-drawn stuff. I may get like some knockoff Mickey Mouse versions. It's probably not going to be the thing that I'm hoping, to see. So remember, these are things that don't violate those copyright laws. So look for things that are a little bit more generic. So I'm going to do map of the US, and let's see what we get. Okay, I see lots of good stuff. Let's pick this top one. I'm going to select it and then choose insert down here in the bottom. And that map will then be a part of my larger Google drawing. With a click and drag, I can expand that as well. And I'm going to try and fill up as much of my workspace here as I can. And then I'm going to shrink it down here just a little bit. That way my map is taking up the whole space. So let's say that this assignment was for students to drop a flag or drop a pin on all of the states that they have been to here within the United States. So, there's a bunch of different things that you can do with the images that you bring in. With a double click on them, you can get the black bars to appear around it, and you can crop the image directly. So if you wanted to, you could bring this down. You could bring this up a little bit, maybe closer to, Florida, but then we're cutting off Hawaii a little bit. So bring that up. And when you hit enter, it locks those changes in place. So that's just a really easy way that you can crop your image. Now, since we're here, I'm also going to point you to our menu bar. When this image is selected, we get those extra icons. I could have chosen crop image from here, and I could have done that same thing as what occurs with that double click. But there's also one other hidden button. You'll notice I have crop image, but right next to it is a downward facing arrow called mask image. And when I select mask image, I get very similar items to what appears on all of my shapes. If you remember back a moment ago, we did this over here to access our shapes. So if I wanted to, I could change this image no matter what it is, not just this map, but maybe it's a picture of your students, maybe it's icons or anything else. You can customize those images to look like other things. So if I wanted to, I can make this map look like an arrow. If I wanted to, I can make this map look like a speech bubble. If I wanted to, I can make it look like a plus sign if that's what I really wanted to do. But by using this mask image, now you're creatively using the tools that you have in front of you to make really awesome items for your students to use. So no more are you stuck with, entire images. Now you can kind of create those customized shapes. Kids love this, especially if it's pictures of themselves or of their friends. Being able to mask that image and, instead of saying, if it's a lunch count for the day, instead of it being, just a picture of the student, maybe it's a picture of their face and an arrow. And now they can kind of click and drag their face, to point to the thing that they would like to eat for the day. There's all kinds of limitless possibilities really for those masked image shapes. So definitely take advantage of that. But while we're here, we said that this assignment was to plant a flag in place of all of the states where we've been. So I'm going to go back up to image, and I'm going to search the web, and I'm going to go for a map pin. Let's see what we get. Okay, so here's my map pin, but I do want to call your attention to two different kinds of image file types that we're going to run into. The first of which is a PNG. That's a portable network graphic. You don't need to know that. There's no test. It's just a super nerd thing that I'll share along with you today. However, the PNGs are those images that have no backs. So if I click and drag this onto my workspace, you'll see this is a great example of a PNG. Now, JPEGs, on the other hand, have those like white backs. So if I were to drag that onto my map area, you would have seen the white back that comes along with it. So let's check and see if we can find one here real quick. No, that's another PNG. How about this one? I bet will be a white back. No, that one's a PNG too. Okay, so without wasting your time, um, just know that JPEGs have that white back, but what we're really searching for are those PNG images. So that way, when I drag it over top, I'm not seeing that white back image. The easy way to do that, or to find only those PNGs, is to actually use the letter code PNG. So if you were to type in map pin PNG, then you would notice that all of the things that are appearing have those clear backs. So that's a really helpful way to kind of hack around your Google image searches. So again, the assignment here is to drop a pin in every location, every state that you've been in the United States. But I only have one of these map dots over here on the side. I'd really love to have a whole bunch, theoretically 50 if students are trying to plot out all the points. Maybe there's a really ambitious student or family that has been to all 50. It would be really nice if there was some kind of way that we could duplicate this without having to use just, Control C copy, Control V paste. And you can. We're going to use a Control D as in dog to duplicate. So on my keyboard, I'm using Control D, and I get a whole bunch of these map dots. What I'm going to do now is select only those map dots, and then we're going to use that trick that we learned just a moment ago. With a right click, I'm going to align horizontally to the center, and then I'm going to align vertically to the middle. And now I have a whole bunch of map dots laying on top of each other, right? So what's really nice about this is I probably made like, I don't know, 10 or more. So what I can do is, now that I have this selected, is Control D, Control D, Control D, Control D. Now I have, theoretically 50 different pins, and I can do that same thing one more time. Align left, align my vertical to the middle. And now it's almost as if I have infinitely cloned all of these map dots for my students to use. So like I said, in a Flash, you have basically just created all kinds of dots that you can use, all kinds of items. Again, it doesn't have to be a map dot, but all kinds of items that are infinitely cloned over here on the side for your students to drag over onto their workspace. So just for fun, I'm going to map a few different places on here so that you can see them. We went to Hilton Head this summer, so definitely want to put South Carolina, been to North Carolina. There's West Virginia, Ohio. I'm not going to sit here and bore you with all the places where I've been, but just kind of a nice little flavor here of some different places. And I'm even going to drop a New Mexico on there because I've been out there too. So all these map dots are great, but we really want to make them work a little bit harder for us rather than just being, flat flags on top of this map. So I'm going to select one of these pins, and then I'm going to look up top here to my my icon menu and select Insert Link. So what I'm basically doing, those of you who are familiar with like ThingLink, what I'm doing is I'm creating an opportunity for students to do more, to ask more of their viewers. So this is just the same as a Google search. So I could do something like New Mexico, and here is the official Welcome to New Mexico website. So I'm going to select that. And now if someone were to come to this drawing and select this map dot, they could access that Welcome to New Mexico website where they're telling us all kinds of great things about New Mexico. It's the whole government website. So it's a great opportunity to take something that was flat, that was plain before, and then using those different links to really plus them up. So maybe the assignment is like, show me your favorite landmark. You could link to images here. You could link to YouTube videos. You could link to all kinds of different things that would be beneficial for you to use with your students, or to recreate an assignment that you're using here with your students. Okay. One of the other things I'm going to show you while we're here, I'm going to get rid of that map, is that you have the ability to insert charts. You also have like a bunch of tables. You also have a bunch of diagrams. So I'm going to select diagram over here on the side, and you have all kinds of amazing graphic organizers at the ready for you to use with your students. So let's say I choose process. You get to choose how many steps are going to be a part of this. You also get to customize the color. And you then have all of these great graphic organizers ready, at your fingertips. So if you were trying to do these kinds of things all on your own, this, would have taken a long, long time. But now you have this really gorgeous graphic organizer to help you put information in on your Google Drawing in a way that is visually appealing for your students. So you'll see that this just has some dummy information on it, but with a double click, I can then change this up. So maybe this is, topic 1, and by clicking here in this area, I can customize the text that appears here as well. So again, just a really nice and easy way to format your information and to make it look really, really great. So one of the things that I had mentioned there a moment ago was, graphic organizers. And one of the things that that I try to do is collect things as I go out and about online. And so this is one of those areas. In the chat window, I have here bit.ly/mazedraw. And that takes you here to my mega cache, my mega collection of all kinds of graphic organizers made using Google Drawing that are ready and available for you and your students. So what I do basically is if I see any good ones that are out and about, I try to collect them and put them in here. So there are quite a few from Eric in here. There's quite a few from Matt Miller, all kinds of people from the internet that have done these great templates, and they're all here in one location ready for you to use. So again, that's bit.ly/mazedraw, and you can find a link to that over in the chat. All right, before we continue, I'm going to stop presenting here for just a moment. If anyone has any questions about Google Drawing, now would be a great time to ask it. I can share and walk through before we move on to our next topic, which is slides. All right, if there are no questions, I'm going to go ahead and share one more time, and we'll jump into our next area, which is Google Slides. So essentially, when I start to think about slides, I do nothing on my own. There are way too many nice templates online for me to waste time trying to do something by myself. So most of the time I start right here within Slides Go, but remember, in your Google Drive, you can always go to Google Slides, choose that arrow, and then from a template to see all of the actual Google created slide templates. And there's a ton of them. They're really, really nice, but there are many websites such as Slides Go that have created these templates for us that are ready for you to use with your students. And the thing that I like most about these is that they're really taking these beyond just simple Google Slides. You can see up top here, we have bulletin boards, we have agenda planners, things that mimic notebooks. As you look up top here, you can see there are several different categories that they've already baked into our work here. But I do absolutely none of the creation of my Google Slides anymore. It takes too much time, and these are way, way, way too pretty for me to waste my time trying to do all of those on my own. So there are 3 that I go to. My favorite is Slides Go. It's really easy. It's just slidesgo.com. You also have slidesmania.com, almost exactly the same thing. I think Slidesmania has really been taking their time on creating these digital notebooks and like these planners and stuff like that, a little bit more so than what Slides Go has done. However, for all intents, they're pretty much the same thing. And then also Slides Gala. I have found quite a few on here that I really like as well, and that's just slidesgala.com. You also have slidesmania.com and slidesgo.com. Very easy. If you do a Google search, you'll see all of those. While I'm here, I also want to direct you to Icons Mania. So this is a partner website to Slides Mania. And basically what they've done is they've taken small images and they have made these different collections for you. So these are all things that you could choose to add to existing Google Slides. These are just little icons, little pictures that will help you to kind of plus those up and make them look really nice as well. So I'm going to do some digging over here on Google Slides Go. And let's go to our education area and see what we can see. I'm going to choose notebook lesson. Okay, and the nice thing about Slides Go, Slides Mania, Slides Gala, all of these, they let you preview them before you make them your own. So when you select it, you can click on these little arrows to go from one slide to the next, just so that way you can see, yeah, this is a thing I think I would like to use, or no, this isn't the look that I was really hoping for. You can use this down below as well to kind of scan through and see your different slides. But once you're sure that this is the template for you, you can even read a little bit more about it. Once you're sure that this is the template for you, you can download this in 2 different ways. And that's actually kind of a little bit of a misnomer, because if we use Google Slides, you're not really downloading anything, you're actually making a copy. And this is what it looks like. So if you choose Google Slides, you're taken to this next screen that basically says, hey, would you like to make a copy of this template? It's called Notebook Lesson by Slides Go. You hit make a copy, and then it makes that version for you, just like what you have seen on that Slides Go website. And now it is fully editable and accessible by you to use, or for your students to use for their work. The very first thing that I do is I change the name. So I go up here to the top, and instead of calling it, copy of notebook lesson by Slides Go, which is really boring, I give it some kind of a customized name. So for our purposes here today, I'm just going to change this to presentation X. And now everything that I see is 100% editable and customizable for me. Now, again, there are several slides on here that I'm probably not going to use. Like, for example, this one here that's using like the tablet. Maybe I don't want to use that one, but there's 3 or 4 slides up above here that I would really like to use. Then use it, right? This is a great template. If there are just a few even things that you think that you could pull from it, or that you might be able to use with your students. The thing that I really like about all these templates is that they include all of the resources that you see throughout the presentation here on the back half. So you'll see, this is where all of the resources came from. And then here are some more. So here are all the fonts that were used. Here are all the colors that were used. Here are the different story sets that you could take from. And then here are tons and tons of editable graphics that you can bring into the presentation. So for example, if you knew that you wanted an alarm clock to appear, you can click on this alarm clock, hit Control-C, go up to the slide, like let's say you wanted it on here, Control-V, and now you have this alarm clock appear on this back slide. Remember here too that you can grab this little dot and change the angle of anything that you have here on your screen. And the same deal as when we were talking about drawing, you could choose to come up top and you can link that image out to something different. You can change, the color, like maybe I don't want it to be blue. You'll notice that all of those colors came through as a part of this template as well. So maybe I want it to be that kind of darker green. And now I have that sitting here waiting for me as well, which is really, really nice. So again, in a flash, I have this gorgeous presentation that's ready for me to use with my students. And all I have to do is click and change some text in order to make it mine and use it with my students. Okay, I'm going to go to this slide here, slide 5, because it shows 2 different pictures. So using Slides Go, Slides Gala, Slides Mania, all the template websites, they're putting pictures on here that are fair use for you to use. So we're not violating copyright. Remember, we had that conversation just a few minutes ago. But, obviously these aren't my students. Maybe I wanted a picture from my school, or maybe I wanted something that was a little bit more personal or just different altogether. Like maybe this isn't about school, maybe this is about something different. And I'm trying to highlight that area. One of the things that you can do is select the image, and then by looking up top, you can choose replace image, and you get all of those same search features, which is really nice. However, when you do a search directly from here, remember you're getting those images that are not copy or that are available to you. They don't violate copyright laws, but to be perfectly honest, a lot of times they're kind of generic, especially as you're searching for different things. It may not be exactly what you're looking for. So what I typically do is I'll come up here to Unsplash. So this is another resource for you. These are photos for everyone to use, totally free. These are just photographers from throughout the world who are trying to get their work out there. And if you throw their name in the back half of your credits, then in the eyes of Unsplash, you are a great user. So this is kind of like a free, fair use image search bar that allows you to find all kinds of things. So let's look up the word school and see what we can see. All right, so lots of really nice images here. Let's say that, instead of that picture of, the one girl, maybe I wanted this one here. By clicking the downward facing arrow, I have just then downloaded this picture, and I get this note that says, hey, give a shout out to the photographer on social, or copy the text below to give an attribution. So I can copy that to my clipboard. I can come back over here to my presentation, and I can click and drag that image up and on. You'll notice it's a little giant, so we'll shrink that up, and I can place that in the position of that girl. So I can either delete that picture, or I can replace it and make it look all nice and pretty. Now remember our ordering. This image is appearing over top of the tape. So if I'm following the theme here, that's not exactly what I'm looking for. So I can change my order, and I can send that to the back. I can bring these to the front if I wanted to. Either way would make it happen to have that tape appear over top of that image. Like I said, just to make it look as if the tape is actually holding down those photos. And I'll angle this just a little bit weirder just because I'm a neat freak like that. We also have that attribution that we copied. So again, if I were doing this for real, then I would come to this thanks page, and I would Control V to add that text on here. And now I'm giving thanks to that artist, that photographer here from Unsplash as my attribution. Okay, so lots of really, really awesome things that we can do here on slides. Really reflect the same exact thing that we talked about with Google Drawing to start our work today. But one of the things that I definitely want to point out is, let's say that you were to share this with students in classroom, and you made it so that the students could directly edit this file. You could theoretically have 30 slides, and on your slide deck there were 30 versions of this. You could say, Jimmy, you're slide 1, Alfonso, you're slide 2, Sally, you're slide 3, and so on and so on. Those students could then come here, find the slide that matches their number, or you could put their name on here, and then they can start to impact the change. Remember our tip from before too, that Control D as in dog to duplicate things. You can use that here on your slides as well. So this is slide 10. Maybe I want 5 versions of this because I really like the way that these little pie charts are. I can Control D, Control D, Control D, and now I have 5 versions of that same slide. So I can change this one to be something a little different. I could click and drag this one to change my order. Maybe I want that to appear up top here. Most of the time when I'm using one of these slide templates, I duplicate things instead of just actually like changing the text, because maybe for one of my slides, I like this layout, but for another slide, I need to change it up just a little bit, or click and drag or remove one thing. And then when I know that I have things in the way that I want them, up above here, maybe, for this example, the first 20 slides, that's my whole presentation, or that's the thing that I'm trying to share with the kids. Then what I would do is either delete everything, beyond, so 21 through however far down it goes, or with a right click, you can choose to skip that slide. So you'll notice that there's a little eyeball covering it at this moment. And that eyeball means that when I go into presentation mode, I'm going to skip from this slide directly to my map. So here's a proof of that. As I go down, I skip that slide and go straight to my map. So that's a really nice way to kind of hold on to things without actually deleting things. Because remember, if the idea is that we want to make our things look really nice, maybe you want to hang on to these, but you just kind of hide them toward the back of your slides. Okay. One of the other things that I have for you in that discussion area I put at the beginning are some random slide generators that I created here using slides. So again, there are a ton of ways that you can use slides with your students. Just a silly way that I think looks really fun are to create some of these student randomizers. So for example, if you wanted to, you could come here to our random sorting hat. I'm a Harry Potter nerd, and this is a published version of Google Slides. Basically, what I did was I said, hey, every 0.25 seconds, I want you to scan forward to a new slide. And then as you look at the instructions here, if I hit the P key, it will stop on a house, and it will sort out that student in that regard. So, think if you're trying to put students into groups or teams, you can customize this to fit your district as well. Let's say we wanted to do this one here. This one I think might be my favorite. This is a student face generator. So obviously these are all characters in my fake classroom from the finest 80s and 90s television and movie shows that I could think of. And again, when I select the P key, then I find out that my student Marty, it's his turn to, be the group leader, or it's his turn to, say the calendar, day and what the weather is going to be like outside. But again, if we're thinking about our students, I can create, this slide template for them and tell them, hey, you get to customize your own slide. So I want a picture of yourself. I need you to change this to your name. I would like for you to put 4 fun facts about yourself, and please touch nothing else, right? So you can, allow students to customize their own randomizer. Billy, your slide 1, Zach, your slide 2, Marty, your slide 3, so on and so on. And then you have this customized random name selector ready to go for your students. They're seeing themselves on screen. They're being more invested in what they're doing. But it's just a really awesome way to make something that looks cool, but also the students have ownership in as well. So that's bit.ly/maze random to get to this sheet to see those things. Okay. And to make that happen, you would actually have to publish that out. So I'll jump back to this and I'll show you that here before we move on. So I'll go to File, and that's Publish to the Web. And when I do so, it basically just says, I'm going to auto advance this every 3 seconds. You can crank that down to every second. You can crank it even lower than that with a copy and paste and a little bit of formatting of that URL. But basically, I want this to start as soon as the player loads, and I want it to restart after the last slide. That's how you get it to advance to the next one and select Publish. It says, are you sure that that's a thing you want to do? And then it gives you this longer URL. So then this is what you would share with students to click on. Or, you can customize it with a URL shortener, kind of like what I showed you there a few moments ago. Now, the trick here is at the very end, it says delay in milliseconds equals 1,000. So by cranking this number down, you are shortening this. So it's not every second, it is, fractions of a second. You could also, expand it if you wanted to, but to get that randomizer to really speed up, you need to think of a number that's less than 1,000. Again, because that's the millisecond equivalent of 1 second here. So by cranking that down and then copying your URL, then you'll be able to have an expedited student randomizer, which is really, really fun too. Okay, so that's how you can publish those things out, and that's how you can share them here with our students. All right, before we continue on to our last section, which we're going to talk about sheets a little bit, are there any questions about what you've seen for slides or for drawing before we move on to sheets? All right, we're going to keep right on rolling. We have one more main thing to talk about, and then we'll have a couple more minutes for questions if you were to have any. Um, but we'll go here into Sheets and talk a little bit about how you can make these sheets look gorgeous too. So before you panic, don't worry. This is all fake data with fake student names. So none of this is actually real. It's all just fake to help me help people understand the way that their sheets can look. So don't worry. With sheets, there's already a barrier for entry for people who just say like, oh, I'm not a spreadsheet person, or oh, it's just too much for me. I don't think I can do that. With a few simple things, with a few simple clicks, there are a lot of items that you can include in here to make them user-friendly, to make them really pretty for everyone to access. Either that's with their students or maybe it's with this kind of student data that we see here on the back end. Notice here at the top, I have my letters to identify columns, and I have numbers down the side here to impact my rows. I could click on any of these to select any one of those rows or columns, but there is a hidden button up here in the top left corner. When selected, I select everything that is a part of this worksheet. So let's say that I wanted this to be a little bit bigger font. And let's say I didn't want this to be Calibri. Let's say I wanted Oxygen. For whatever reason, that's my favorite font on here. So, so that's the one I'm going to use. Okay. You'll notice now that some of these just don't fit anymore. So this grade level thing doesn't fit. With a click and a drag to expand, now that's going to fit in place. You could also use your tools up top here and do some text wrap changes as well. So wrap that text out and then have things, appear fully within that space. So, so definitely make sure that you're checking that out as well. I find like plain white spreadsheets to be pretty boring. So one of the things that we can do is we can come up here into Format and we can scroll down to alternating colors. They give you a bunch of different options as defaults here at the top. And when selected, that will impact every other cell or every other row or every other column here on our spreadsheet. So you can customize these out. Maybe it's not exactly the colors that you're looking for. Maybe you want, a lighter shade in one as opposed to the other. And when you select done, you have just now created already a better looking spreadsheet than what we started with. Okay, one of the other things that we can do is we can change conditional formatting. So you'll notice that over here on the side, for my iReady fall reading overall, there's a lot of overlap. So there's like level 6, level 3, so on and so on. One of the things that we can do is we can make this worksheet work for us. So basically, if something is a level 6, I want it to appear as green. If it's a level 4, I want it to appear as blue, so on and so on. Instead of actually clicking on these and coming up to the paint bucket and changing them individually, we can go to Format and we can go to Conditional Formatting. Okay, that brings this menu up on our far right where I can change things based on some rules. So format a cell if, and in this case, I am going to be looking for text contains, because the difference here, most of these say like level or early or whatever, but really what I'm searching for is this number. So if the text contains the number 6, I want it to be green. When you hit done, all of those items that are 6 are now green. If you choose add another rule, because remember, I still have this S column selected, I can come back here, text contains. Now let's say I want to look for 7s. Anything that has a 7 in it, I want you to change to yellow. And when I hit done, now all of those are that yellow color. One more time, text contains. Anything that's a 2, let's make those blue just for fun. And seemingly you could have a whole bunch of conditional formats depending on the column. This one here for your like actual score, your math score, if you were to add another rule in that area, you could even do a color scale. So you could say something like, the minimum value here, just looking, very quickly, appears to be like 450, somewhere in there. So minimum value of our sheet is going to be this color. Our maximum value is going to be that color, but we can change this up a little bit to different hues of green even. And when you hit done, then it would change up each of those individual cells to be that color scale. Okay, so just a really nice and easy way to bring those about. Now, our spreadsheets are, it's computers. We're basically talking robots here. So they understand numbers. Our spreadsheets understand, commands, yeses and nos. But one of the other things that it can understand are trues and falses. So let's say that, in between these two columns, I wanted to put a checkbox. If you click this downward facing arrow, you can insert one to the right. And then in this space, after I highlight down, I can go to insert and I can choose checkbox. So now for my reluctant users, instead of having to type in the word true, or instead of having to type in the word false, I can just have these checkboxes where a person can come in and say, for this student, Alvaro Lorenz, let's say that this was, if they attended class yesterday, I can check the box, right? So, so on and so on. This actually has a data validation one on it. Let me see if I can grab a different row. That's why it was changing to the words true and false here. So let me just grab a few of these. Insert my checkbox. Oh boy. So there's a data validation on there. Let me see if I can get rid of that validation real quick. So just bear with me. Let's go to data. Let's go to validation and remove that validation. And then let's go back to our checkboxes and try that. There we go. So when things don't have that data validation in place, then you can toggle this on true or false. Makes it really, really nice for users to access. One other thing that I just showed very briefly and very quickly is to add data validations. And this is one of my other favorite things to do. So let's say that I was trying to split these up, not by math or science or social studies teacher. Maybe this is like specials. So, your gym, art, whatever, whoever that student's homeroom teacher may be, let's say. If you go into data, you can come down to data validation. And instead of list from a range, you can do list of items. So again, maybe this is classroom teachers. You can have Jones, comma, Miller, comma, me. Let's put that. And then I want this to show in a drop down. Okay. So what I'm going to do is save that in place. And now you see all of these clickable arrows appear. Instead of a teacher having to type in all of those names that we just talked about, a teacher could come here, click the downward arrow, select the name, select the name, select the name, and so on and so on. So now very rapidly and very easily on your part, we have created this avenue for people to have drop down. So, for our reluctant users or for students even who we might be nervous about working with spreadsheets, by using data validation, by using our checkboxes, by using our conditional formatting, we're creating really gorgeous spreadsheets that are workable for every single person, who can click a drop down or who can check a box or who can see, color variants within our sheets. One of the other things that I'll point out before we wrap up is that there are different ways that you can impact the text that appears on your page as well. So you'll notice that these are all, just linear, they're horizontal, left to right. But by choosing this button up here, text rotation, you can choose how the text is going to appear. And you can see that one got really wonky. We can bring this down a little bit and you can see kind of what that's going to look like. There we go. So now by changing this up, I'm impacting the look of the text for my columns and my rows. So that was just up here next to text rotation. You can change those things out too. All right, within the last 55 minutes, we have talked about a ton of different things. I can see that there is a question in our discussion area. If you have other questions, please add them there. I'll be happy to stay on for as long as you need. As well as if you have other questions or something spark in your memory from slides or from Google Drawing, I have all of those up there too. Okay, so the question from Jennifer says, how do you keep the A and B columns stationary in the spreadsheet while the other columns shift? That's a wonderful question. Let me share my screen with you one more time. And this is actually fairly simple for our clicks, right? You'll notice that as I'll bring this back up, as I'm scrolling down, this row 1 is not moving. And as I'm scrolling from left to right, the CD column, and so on, those are moving, but my A and B column are not moving. So that's basically what the question is asking. So to make that happen, you'll come up here to View, scroll down to Freeze, and then choose what it is that you're looking for. So I want to freeze in place 1 row, 2 row, up to the current row, which I have selected, which is row 1. You could do, up to the current row 20, up to the current row 50, if that's really what you felt like, and if you had a screen big enough for it. But all I did was select up to that first row. So that's what blocked that. And then the same thing, View, Freeze, and then on columns, I just chose 2 columns because I had the student number and their last name. First name doesn't really matter because I don't have duplicates here within this class of fake students. But if you wanted to, you could also do View, Freeze, up to current column C. And now I'm protecting that first name alongside them as I go to scroll as well. So one last time, View, Freeze, and then I have all of those items frozen for me if I need to. Okay, wonderful question, Jennifer. Thank you so much for asking. Are there any other questions about anything you've seen today or heard, within this session, things that struck your fancy? If you want to talk Harry Potter houses or what your favorite TV shows of the 80s and 90s and 2000s are, I'd love to do that too. Well, if there are no other questions, I'll make sure that I'm the last person out of the room if anyone wants to stick on and ask other questions. Teresa said she has other questions once she starts playing. That's excellent. I'm always here for you. Again, I work here at the ESC at SPARCC, so if you need anything, I'll drop my email into the chat because I realize I haven't done that yet. Okay, so my email is in the chat. Please feel free to reach out. That can even be like, hey, can you come into my classroom and help me teach my students these things? Or, I'd really appreciate if you could come do our teacher meeting or, TBTs or our building or whatever you need. I'm here for you, not just with this, but for anything that you need with technology. As we look to wrap up, into the chat, I put a few different things. Again, that link to that Google Drawing cache of amazing templates for you to use, as well as all those student randomizers. So bit.ly/maze random, those are all on there. They're all like published out, so you can use them, and then you can make copies of them and customize them out if you wanted to do it in that regard too. And then lastly, what I'll tell you is there is all kinds of amazing content on happening for our conference. So definitely make sure to check out the conference website. Go to sessions. You'll see a link to click for attendance for today, so that way you can get a certificate for an hour for this session, as well as all of the recordings that that have been made today, and all the other pre-recorded sessions that are up there. I have one of those too. So if you want to check it out, there are so many resources waiting for you to use within your classroom with your students to help you make things that are going to be engaging for your students and for yourself too.